Hello, friends, and welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am your host, Tom Downey, coming at you guys live from the NFL Combine out here in wet, rainy, and cold Indianapolis. With the Combine here, we figured we'd run you through 10 different players plus some other honorable mention shout-outs, players to watch out for this week at the NFL Combine. We begin with the one who wants to set a record. That is Henry Ruggs, the wide receiver out of Alabama. Talked with him today at the Combine. He told me he wants to run a 4.22 or lower. That number is not an accident. That's the number he wants to beat to surpass John Ross with the fastest 40-yard dash time in NFL Combine history. Now, we'll see if Ruggs can do it. Either way, the dude has incredible wheels. He's so fast. I think he's an option at number 17 overall, especially if something unforeseen happens to Amari Cooper or if Randall Cobb chooses to leave. He's more than just fast. I like him more than like John Ross coming out, quite frankly. Although I do wonder if he'll actually fall to the Cowboys pick at number 17 overall. Maybe someone like Denver could snatch him up instead. But of course, all eyes will be on Ross on Thursday once he runs that 40-yard dash in primetime this year at the NFL Combine. So will he break John Ross's record, or Chris Johnson, if you're a conspiracy theorist like me and still believes that it is Johnson, who has that 40-yard dash record? Type Y for yes and for no in the comments section. We'll go to another receiver. That's Michael Pittman. Now, a lot of these guys we're going to go through our first-round prospects. That's certainly not Pittman. But I wanted to include him on here because Michael Pittman has already met with the Cowboys at the Combine and is going to have a formal interview later on during this process. That's noteworthy to me. Now, we've mentioned Pittman before in a mock draft. Clearly, the Cowboys have some interest in him. Now, I do have some speed concerns there. I'm not quite sure how fast Pittman is going to run at this year's Combine, but he's not super slow, and he's a good possession receiver. I like him a lot out of USC. In a loaded wide receiver class, could someone like Pittman, especially if he runs a little bit slower than expected, could he slide to round 4? If so, could the Cowboys get some great value at that position? I'm super intrigued by that option. Of course, there are other receivers to watch out for at the Combine. As I mentioned, a stupid good class this year at the position. Denzel Mims from Baylor. Many of you like the local products on the Cowboys Report, and that's not a huge surprise to me. I think he could test out with some great numbers this year. Lynn Bowden, Devin Duvernay, both some slot receivers. John Hightower hasn't really been mentioned here much on the show. Boise State kid. We know how the Cowboys feel about those particular prospects out of that school. And he's got the juice. He's got speed. That's a big deal for the Cowboys. They could use some more of that. And then Van Jefferson, I think he might go in round 3, but if he's there in round 4, would be a great number 3 receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, these are some of the players that I am watching out for, but I want to know from you. Who are you excited to watch at the NFL Combine? Can be more than just one player. Can be beyond just the first-round prospects. I'll make this the pinned comment of the video. So if you hit with an ad break on YouTube, scroll on down and put your votes right there. All right, tight end is up next. That's Jared Pinkney out of Vanderbilt. I mention him over other tight ends because, per my good friend Jonah Talls, the Cowboys have another interview set up with him. Now, he said he wants to run a sub 4.7 40-yard dash, but he does tend to fit what the Cowboys are looking for in the tight end position. I'm curious to see what ends up happening on that front. His stats have been good. They kind of were up and down as of late because, well, the quarterback play at Vanderbilt was terrible last year. I put a lot of the blame on that. Now, if you want a full list of all of the Combine meetings the Cowboys will have, stay tuned for the channel. We did it last year. We'll do it again this year. We will put out the list of everybody who has met with the Dallas Cowboys. So hit that big red button, subscribe, and turn those notifications on. That way, you know immediately once those happen. All right, some other tight ends that I want to mention here as well. Bryson Hopkins out of Purdue. Curious to see how he tests. There are some high expectations for him jumping-wise. Adam Trautman is competing to be the first FCS player off the board out of Dayton. If the Cowboys don't want to spend their round 2 pick on a tight end, I doubt they get him. Devin, a CSC out of UCLA, former Michigan kid, could put up some surprisingly good numbers, could be a sleeper there. Harrison Bryant, I'm curious to see how he tests. I don't love him yet, but there is certainly some stuff to work with there. If he's there in round 4, I'm totally on board with that pick. And then Albert O, just call him O. It's so much easier to pronounce. Out of Missouri, did not peak really the same way he did after his freshman year. Curious to see how he tests, and the Cowboys could be looking for a day 3 pick at the tight end position. Now, Stephen Jones has heavily focused on the Cowboys defense as of late, especially here with media at the NFL Combine, so that's where most of our focus will be for this particular video. Neville Gallimore, he's up next here. I am excited to see what he runs. He's 300-plus pounds, and we'll see what the exact weigh-ins are in the coming days, but he, per Bruce Feldman in the past, ran a 4.76 40, which it seems impossible to me. That is such a ridiculously low number for a 300-plus pound man. Just for examples here, Geno Atkins ran a 4.75, but at 293. If Neville Gallimore can come in sub 4.8, he might very well go in round one. That's not the grade I have on him, but I do think you're going to see him have a big stock up this week at Indianapolis. Now, there are several other defensive linemen that are certainly worth watching for. I think one of them is going to make the leapfrog into round one, and if not, there will probably be a couple of these players on the board in round two for the Cowboys. Ross Blacklock out of TCU, that's one. Jordan Elliott, I think, is about to get some big push media-wise as we catch up with the NFL themselves. Marlon Davidson, curious what he checks in at. He got a little heavy for the Senior Bowl, but I liked him at that weight, wants to cut weight, so we'll see what the answer ends up being there. Leki Fotu, if you want the fatties only 2020 campaign for the Cowboys defensive line, he fits that mold. And then Justin Matabuke as well, the defensive tackle out of A&M. All of those guys, I think one of them leapfrogs into round one, and I think I'll have a better feel for which one that's going to be after the NFL Combine, and then whichever one it isn't makes a ton of sense for the Cowboys in round two. Got a special deal for you guys. Cowboys hats are on sale right now with our friends over at Fanatics. All types of styles and colors and brims and everything. All types of varieties are on sale. You can check them out at chatsports.com/Cowboys hats. Now, I think supply is getting a little bit low, so if you haven't got one yet, I know a lot of you guys have, now is probably a pretty good time to go do that. It's chatsports.com/Cowboys hats. All right, edge rusher here, A.J. Epinesa. He is next up. I wouldn't be surprised if Kayvon Chasen usurps Epinesa and is already off the board by the time the Cowboys get pick number 17. But Epinesa might be there. If he is, I am very intrigued by that as an option for the Cowboys in round one. He's not the same bendy, Gumby type guy that Chasen is, but he's a good run defender as well. Got good size. He's not a bad athlete. I mean, he's not Robert Quinn, but only 5% of the NFL is equal or better than Quinn is in his prime as an athlete. A little bit more of the DeMarcus Lawrence mold. I don't mind having two of those guys. I think it'd be a good pick for the Cowboys at number 17, but I know there are some athletic testing concerns around him. Very curious how all that checks out later on this week at the Combine. All right, corners, defensive backs, spent a lot of time here. First up is Trevon Diggs. You've probably seen him in some round one mock drafts for the Cowboys. I got some speed concerns, which I've mentioned before on the show. I didn't see great makeup speed out of Diggs. Not to say he's like a 4.7. I don't think that he is. But if he runs a 4.55, even with his bloodlines and being a Diggs, he is Stefan's brother, is that a guy you want to take in round one? He had a bit of a rough go against Jamar Chase, although pretty much every corner in college football had a bit of a rough go against Jamar Chase. I like Diggs. If he runs sub 4.5, I don't see how you keep him out of round one. I've seen him slide a bit lately out of the first round in some other mock drafts, not so much ours here, but we'll see. We'll see just how fast he ends up being. Now, I want to know from you guys, when do you want to draft a cornerback? Is it in round one? You're not going to get Jeffrey Okudah. It's kind of a middle group after that with some other names that we'll get to as well. Or do you want someone later on in the draft beyond round one? My mindset is if you lose Byron Jones, you better at least be exploring the option of a round one corner if there is someone that you like. You guys can cast your votes for one, which is round one, two, which is after the first round, in the comments section below. Next up, the cornerback list, C.J. Henderson. We've talked a lot about Christian Fulton, so I'm going to leave him off the list for this particular time and focus in on Henderson. Now, he's got some tackling concerns, but he can play a man-to-man. Much like Fulton, frankly, I think there are some similarities there between those two corners. I think it's tough to find sticky man-to-man coverage, guys. Henderson has some pretty good size, a really good athlete as well. If he runs as fast as I think he can, he might push himself up just a little bit into that maybe cementing as cornerback 2 in this year's NFL draft. So I like Henderson. I am curious how he tests, how he interviews. You don't want to ever scout the helmet, but there have been some recent issues with Florida players coming out. I mean, we saw Ja'Kai Polite last year completely bomb the NFL Combine, and he's looking around for jobs still in the NFL. You saw Chauncey Gardner-Johnson drop when he shouldn't have. I think he didn't interview that well. So I'm just curious what happens to Henderson. Not saying he's going to have those issues, but it is at least worth mentioning, I think. All right, some other corners that I want to just mention before I dive into the safeties. Christian Fulton, we talked a lot about him. I like him. Some aren't as high on him, but I'll stick my camp in the, hey, Christian Fulton's a really good man-to-man cover corner. I value that. Jeff Gladney, I think, might run in the low 4.3s. Just keep that in mind. He's going to, if he hasn't already in the mock draft, he's going to be a round one guy. Like I've had him for months now. Damon Arnett has to do some interviewing with NFL teams. I've heard whispers of attitudes type stuff, but I think he's fine. He had a great year for Ohio State. He might be a round one guy. And some other players here. Cameron Dantzler could be a round two pick for the Cowboys. Noah Imbignogany, if I botched that, I'm sorry, I don't have my pronunciation guide in front of me today. Those guys, I think, are more round two options for Dallas if they aren't able to get a cornerback in round one. Now, today's show is brought to you by BetDSI. So head over to chatsports.com/bet and use that promo code Cowboys120. Maybe you can bet on the XFL. Look, guys, funny enough, it's actually almost March as well, which is crazy to me because where has the time gone? You can bet on March Madness, the NBA, all kinds of stuff on BetDSI. It's chatsports.com/bet. That promo code is Cowboys120. All right, safety time here. No Grant Delpit on this list. He is not going to do drills. By the way, neither is Javon Kinlaw. That's why Kinlaw also didn't make this list. So McKinney, if he can maybe exceed expectations in his testing, maybe he could end up being the first safety off the board, which isn't that crazy with what I've heard right now overall when it comes to the safety position. Good player, reliable player. I like him. He's a top 32 guy for me, but he's not a top 20 guy for me. If he blows me away testing-wise, maybe I'll revisit that. But he could cement himself as safety one, and for a team of the Cowboys that needs a safety, that's kind of a big deal. So we got two more names at the position I want to dive into here. But first, which safety do you want the Cowboys to draft? Now, many of us, including me, really wanted Juan Thornhill last year, and we know how that one turned out. Did not go according to plan. So let me know in the comments section which safety you want the Dallas Cowboys to draft this year. At least for me, it's actually our next guy on the list. That's Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Minnesota. Plays like his daddy. Yes, he's undersized, but he's a really good tackler for the most part. He's a playmaker. He plays bigger than his size, and he forces turnovers, be it interceptions, forced fumbles, whatever. He had a monster year for Minnesota. He's just a playmaker, and I need those guys. And although I've heard a little bit of round one buzz for him, I don't think he's going to run a blazing 40 time or blow the numbers out of the water that will really push him into round one. So I do think he is a real target for the Cowboys in round two, and if that's the case, I desperately want him on the Dallas Cowboys. Round things out here, our last player, Kyle Duggar. Many of you have asked about him. If you've been watching us here at Chat Sports, we've mentioned his name months ago, even middle of the season. Out of Lenore-Rhyne, he's a freaky athlete. I think this is the kid who could run a just bonkers 40-yard dash for his weight class. He's almost 220. Someone play him at linebacker. I'm playing him at safety. I would not be that surprised. Not saying it's going to happen because we still got months until the NFL draft. I would not be that surprised if he pushed himself into at least some late round one discussion. I'll go with another small school safety, different type of player, but Jimmy Ward type of deal there. Darnell Savage last year. I like Kyle Duggar a lot. I'm not convinced he's going to be there in round two, but you best believe I'll be watching how he tests the combine. I'll be going to his media stuff as well, just to see how he reacts and how he handles a pretty massive stage for a kid that was not playing in front of a big group of crowd back at Lenore-Rhyne. Hey Cowboys fans, thanks for watching the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, click right here to subscribe to our channel for all the best Cowboys coverage on the internet. That's news, rumors, highlights, mailbags, film studies, and a whole lot more. And I'm making your lives a little bit easier as well with the next Cowboys Report video right here.